high-priced modern art is money laundering. I got quite a few takes sent my way that were similar-ish in tone, but more so they were about like how modern art is shit, about how just the state of modern art, it's just a bunch of poopies, just garbage. But this one stood out a little bit because it was a bit more specific in stating that modern art, or the high pricedness of modern art, is solely for the purposes of laundering ill-gotten gains. And this one also stands out because, you know, there's a lot of like takes that people can have that you might look at and go, ooh, not sure about that one. That's, and maybe even takes and opinions that maybe I don't want to necessarily give my opinion on, lest people think differently of me. What if people's opinions on me are marred by the sudden realisation that I think one way or the other about one thing or another? This one, however, is pretty much just a statement of fact. Like, high-priced modern art is money laundering. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's just... yeah, absolutely. It is. Well, not... I mean, that's not to say the sole purpose of modern art and the high-pricedness of it is for the laundering of illicit funds. But the high-pricedness of modern art, and art in general, certainly lends itself toward, for instance, laundering buttloads of illegal cash. Because the system is set up in such a way that, you know, when art is auctioned off, it's not always, but very often, the purchasers stay anonymous. They will purchase the artwork through sometimes multiple intermediaries, which is the point of laundering money. That's the thing. That's what laundering money is. If you've seen Office Space, then you know literally the definition. They look it up. Because you can buy artwork with ridiculous sums of money, of illegally gotten money, through a person, through an auction, and it just continually and more obfuscates the initial source of that money, obscures where the money's coming from, obscures where it's going, and often these artworks are bought sort of in part by and or for non-profit organisations. They're often gifted. They're often, something to do with charity. So there's taxes don't have to get paid on them, and this and that. All kinds of things. All kinds of means and ways and systems that people have come up with to hide illegally obtained monies and to not pay taxes on it. Because if you start paying taxes on illegally gained money, then you are highlighting these amounts of money. But you have a friend in the art world who's known for collecting. They have a lot of money. You slide them some cash. They buy some artwork. It launders the money. It makes its way back to you, not paying taxes on it. And this, I say, well, obviously that's a thing that happens. There has been multiple cases where people have been caught doing this, or people who are involved have been found out, because it only takes a person to slip up with some kind of not necessarily paperwork, but slip up in some way and just accidentally let on to what they're doing through one means or another. And so every now and then someone gets caught and they get found out. I assume whoever put them up to it gives them a nice slap on the wrist as punishment for being a silly bastard and getting themselves caught trying to launder money through the purchasing of incredulously inflated costing artworks. I believe in general there's maybe more, but I see them as in general two camps of people who sort of run the art world, and one of those is like the elites, just people with more money than sense, more money than most of us will ever see in our lifetimes ever, just all the money in the world, and they believe that puts them in a position of power and it makes them better than everybody else around them. And so they like to keep art for themselves because they can afford art, which means art is a luxury, and therefore it stays in their club. They're the ones that can afford it, which means they're better than everybody else, and they pretend to understand it and they have big collections of it. And it's literally, it's like a cliquey kind of self-importance kind of thing. It's just people keeping the club as restricted as possible, as exclusive as possible, not letting anyone else in because they've got money and you haven't. That's one type of people I believe control the art world. The other kind is basically the same, but they're maybe in general a little quieter about it because they are using that money and position and power of art and the art world to launder money and, you know, hide illicit funds and avoid taxes and help their friends avoid taxes and all the rest of it. They're basically the same kinds of people. It's just, I think there are genuinely rich people who don't know or care enough. They'll like pay people to launder the money for them without realising they're laundering the money for them. They just think, oh, I'll just have someone buy some art for me. Yeah, it's great. It's totally great. Yeah, I just got this new piece, this new Rothko. Yeah, it's great. 400 million pounds. Yeah, it's totally great. And that's all they see it as. They don't even understand the processes of money laundering or whatever. They just think, oh, I just gave someone some money and now I own this crazy expensive piece of artwork. Yeah, it's totally great. Yeah. That's how they all talk, you see. And they're just stupid rich people that just think that they're good because they have art. But then it's the people sort of more or less behind the scenes that are like using that whole business to funnel cash, etc. Oh, by the way, hi everybody. Hello. Oh, hi. Oh, fancy seeing you here on our regularly scheduled show that I do. Happy 300th episode. Jesus kableezus. Can you believe I've been doing this shit for 300 episodes? I don't even know how... it's been more time than it is. How many years is 300 weeks? I could probably figure it out. 6, 7, 5.7. Oh, it's been 6 years. It's been 6 or more years, probably closer to 7 that I've been doing the podcast, because there was a period where I wasn't doing it weekly. And now it's episode 300. Jesus the Christ. Can you believe it? I mean, yeah, you probably can, because it happens every week. And I've done it enough weeks that now it's 300 episodes. So it's not that unbelievable, really. I mean, it's cool, but it's not crazy unbelievable. So I wanted to do something. Like, I wasn't expecting to do anything huge or grand or whatever, but I wanted to do something. So I figured I'd get some kind of audience participation. And so I figured what would be neat is if I could get people to give me their hot takes. They're potentially controversial or unpopular opinions about art related things, the art world in general. I gave examples of, they could let me know if they think like this or that artist is overrated or underrated, or if they think this or that kind of art is more legitimate than another kind. Those kinds of things. So I put out a call on Instagram for that, and a bunch of people got back to me with their opinions, because everyone does love to make their opinions known, don't they? Says me, who does it weekly. He's done it 300 times weekly on what he calls a podcast, whatever the fuck that is. And so that's what I'm doing today. I'm using them to make my content, so it's easier for me. I don't have to think of anything. I just read a bunch of shit that other people have done, give my opinion on it, and that's the episode. It's a 3-hour special, so do with that what you will. I don't necessarily expect everybody to sit and watch the entire 3 hours, although apparently a lot of people did sit and watch the entire 12-hour episode I did. Did you know I did a 12-hour episode? I forget which episode number it is, but it's up there. Go and find it, I guess, if you're into that, if you're a masochist like that. But we're doing it regardless. I'm going to try to keep it at exactly 3 hours, and I've got, because I record my stuff in segments, I'm going to try to keep everything fairly structured. Largely that will probably be done in editing, therefore there may be quite a few times where I'm halfway through a sentence and then it will just cut off into the next bit, because fucking whatever, doesn't matter, does it? It's just fucking whatever. That's just how I'm running it today. That's how this episode's going. We're going to a strict itinerary, to a strict schedule, and we're endeavouring to keep to that strict schedule. And ultimately we just have hanging out, having a laugh, talking about some hot takes, some crazy controversial opinions about art and the art world and shit. Oh, there's some stuff about the Mona Lisa in there. Someone mentioned feet. That's always good. We've got some perverts in the audience talking about feet. Oh, you love it. It's brilliant. Oh, it's just brilliant. Get involved. Stay tuned. Watch the whole bit, the show. And I guess on to the next bit now. The next hot take, is, should you separate the art from the artist, or should their actions change your thoughts? Or should their actions change your thoughts? Oh, no, yeah, no, that was worded correctly. I know who wrote this, and they're good at words. Should you separate the art from the artist, or should their actions change your thoughts? This person added to that by mentioning a particular artist who I am aware of the situation. The artist being Ein, E-E-I-N-E or something. I'm going to talk about it in a much broader sense, but just to let you know, I am aware of that guy and the situation surrounding him and his current controversies of being apparently a massive piece of shit. Now, I fully understand the sort of premise and concept of separating the art from the artist. Like on a what's the word I'm looking for? On a hypothetical, conceptual, theoretical basis, I understand wanting to separate the art from the artist, because it might be a piece of art you've loved. You might really like certain songs and pieces of music created by a person who ended up becoming a monster, maybe a pedophile. Maybe he was a really good dancer and he made really good music for decades, and then it turned out he was an absolute atrocious, horrendous child abuser. But I really like that song that he did that one time though. So separate the art from the artist, because and then just keep supporting child abusers and pedophiles because you like that song a bit. So why would you want to ever change your life or what you do? Why would you want to interrupt your conveniences in order that you no longer support horrific abuse of the defenseless? Which that's a fairly flippant way of saying it, but that's basically my stance on it. Is like, for instance, there's pieces of art, music, comedy even, that I've really enjoyed over the years, and then something comes out and the person who made it turns out they're a big piece of shit. Sometimes it's like, yeah, that's to be expected, that this person in this world is a big piece of shit. Sometimes you just expect it, or don't expect it, but you're maybe not surprised to hear that they are in fact big fucking piece of shit. But for me personally, whenever I've tried to engage with the artwork that I like by these people, after learning, what they're actually like, I find I can't enjoy it, because it's now sort of their reputation has now sort of tainted whatever that art is, because it's indelibly attached to them, to that person as an artist, as a performer or whatever. So for instance, when trying to when trying to consume this art, listen to this music, watch this comedy, whatever, all I can think is, oh, that's this person and they're a piece of shit. And that's all I can think when viewing the art by that person, which makes me not want to fuck with their art anymore. So fuck them. That's I feel that's how it should be. Just on a basic, like, on a basic level of my feelings, how I feel, literally how I feel, not how I think about it, but how I feel about it, is that I don't know why I'm outlining with this screen. That wasn't my intention, but fuck it, I guess it'll do, won't it? But then on a I don't know, on a more practical level, for instance, if you find out that a musician you like is a Nazi, or at the very least a Nazi sympathiser, if not straight up a Nazi himself, and that person is still going and still creating music, and you are still partaking in that music, if you're still listening to streams, downloading, buying from them, whatever, you are actively supporting, for instance, a Nazi, or at the very least a Nazi sympathiser. If that's what you want to do, sure, go ahead. I'm not here to say you should or shouldn't do this. I'm just saying probably you shouldn't do that. And that's the same across all, arts and whatever else, is if you are actively consuming content created by known woman beaters, child abusers, sex offenders, Nazis, Nazi supporters, racists, homophobes, whatever it is, if you're actively consuming that content made by those people, then you are actively supporting them and what they do. You can say you're separating the art from the artist, but yeah, if you're streaming music by someone who's horrible, they are benefiting from that, and you are almost legitimizing. You're saying, oh, it's okay because it's just they make good music, so it's fine, it's whatever. So then why would they feel the need to change it all? because if they can just carry on and still have people listen to their music or endorse their products, their comedy, their art, whatever, why would they need to change? So I get, like I say, on a on a hypothetical level, I understand the concept of separating the art from the artist. I just don't personally believe it's a thing. To me, separating the art from the artist reeks of, like I say, people not wanting to give up their favourite thing, not wanting to compromise the ease of their life for the, for the potential benefit of not supporting monsters. You do what you want, obviously, but I think separating the art from the artist is making excuses. Like I do when I say, I agree with veganism. I think everyone should be vegan. But I make excuses as to why I'm not vegan and why I do still eat meat and whatever. I make excuses so that I can live my my life in a slightly more comfortable way. So, I am aware of those methods of thinking and maybe guilty of them in some respects. But also, maybe you probably shouldn't support someone that punches their girlfriend in public or in private, but I believe in this instance it was done in public. And, that's less than cool, really, isn't it? Let's be honest. I'm drawing a turtle. Teenage Mutant Ninja Tortoise. Teenage Mutant Ninja Tortoise. Teenage Mutant Ninja Tortoise. I believe they are tortoises. Oh, that was way more orange than I expected it to be. I ought to have tested it. It looks almost the same as the red, doesn't it? What am I going to do about that? What's a gal to do? The gal in this instance being me. There will be more to this drawing. I'm not going to spend 3 hours 3 hours drawing this one bit. Oh, I mean, I could. Do you reckon I could? Do you reckon I could spend... Well, I mean, I could cross-hatch it, couldn't I? And just spend hours and hours cross-hatching, but no one wants to see that today. Do they? Do they? Maybe people do want to see that. Maybe people would be really interested to see me cross-hatch for hours and hours on it. But I very much doubt it. No, that's going to need something else in it. I have other pens with inks that I can do something with that. 300 episodes. Can you believe it in your balls? I can't, but I'll carry on anyway. I want to test these greys and things because I don't know if they're going to be good or not. I want some light greys, but I also want some dark greys. I don't remember which ones are which. Is this a darker grey? Yeah, that'll be right. Another hot take. Have I explained the whole hot takes thing? Yeah, I did that, didn't I? That's pretty much the episode. We'll look at some art books and things, but that's basically it. So get used to that, I guess. The next hot take is that freaking feet are trickier to draw than hands. Now, I do have an opinion about this. I think you're not entirely wrong to say that, but at the same time, you are a little bit wrong in saying that, because that is what I feel that is a symptom of something larger, which is hands are seen as like one of these just really hard things to draw. Everyone knows hands is difficult to draw, so you draw a lot of hands. Plus, in your day-to-day drawing life, if you draw for fun or you draw for profit, if you do illustrations or you do comics or paintings, figurative or whatever, chances are you draw hands or need to draw hands fairly often, certainly probably more often than you would draw feet, for instance. Therefore, you need to try to draw hands more, and therefore you end up drawing hands more and end up almost maybe potentially even getting good at drawing hands. It's just something you do so much that maybe you get good at it through a natural matter of course of just doing it time after time. But then you run into an issue which I come across quite a lot with like drawing comics, where suddenly the person, you need to draw feet suddenly. I was trying to think of an example that wasn't feet. Birds. Anytime I have to draw a bird, I think I know what a bird looks like, and I go, oh, okay, yeah, I'll just draw a bird. There, that's a bird. I mean, in a way, yeah, that is a bird, but it's like there's a bit more to birds than that. They've got wings. Oh, what do wings look like? This. That's fine, sure. So you end up having to like go on Google Images and just literally Google bird just to see what the fuck a bird looks like, because who the fuck has ever drawn a bird? I don't know how to draw a fucking bird. And feet are the same thing. It's suddenly you realise you think you know what a foot looks like, and then you try and draw a foot and you realise maybe you've never seen a foot in your life. So now you're Google imaging foot, and then you start Google imaging celebrity feet, and now you're in a whole spiral of the world of feet, which, you know, isn't the worst place to be, but you were just trying to draw a thing and now it's turned into a whole other separate thing. But so feet aren't inherently any more difficult to draw than literally anything else. I'd argue hands are a bit harder to draw because there's more that can go on with them. They're a bit more spindly, but you probably pay attention to hands more often, so you maybe understand a bit more. But then when it comes to drawing feet, all of a sudden, what the fuck do feet look like? Who ever saw a foot in their life? Who has ever seen a foot? Who knows how to draw a fucking foot? Nobody. That's who. And so you end up having a hot take, which that's not a bad hot take to have, especially if that's a thing you have dealt with or are dealing with. The idea that feet are harder to draw than not feet. But that's interesting, isn't it? I used this just completely on a whim, thinking, I'll just throw that in for this bit here. It looks quite good. Nice little bit of colour burst, isn't it? So it's a pretty good hot take. I don't hate that. It would be easy for me to be like, actually, it's not that they are difficult to draw, it's just that you haven't drawn them enough. So then maybe just put some more fucking effort into drawing them and you won't find it so difficult. But really, no, it makes a lot of sense that would be something that comes up for you, that feet seem to be harder to draw because repeat the same sentence in slightly different ways again and again because I'm trying to just fill in time or whatever. This isn't finished. This isn't nearly finished, but it's getting close, isn't it? It's getting close. Just like me with your mum, I'm getting close. What's the colour I'm looking for? I've got these two Posca markers. One's brown and one's like a purple, but from a distance, I don't know, something. From a distance. Oh, that's way darker than I thought it would be. Holy heck. It's not bad though. I can work with that. I can use that. That's all right. That's not the end of the world. That's fine. It's all fine. It's all very good. It's all very good. I believe it were last week. I think it was last week. Where I looked through the second book of this street sketchbook. And I believe I mentioned that I preferred the first book to the second book. And this is the first book, so I thought I'd look through the first one rather than the second one. It doesn't have as nice a blue. I like the blue insides on the second one, but this one doesn't have that. But it's sketchbooks. It's a bunch of. There's no blurb on the back. It's a bunch of sketchbooks from street artists. That's the premise of the book, which is a really good premise because sketchbooks are always fun to look at. Not always, as long as they're good. As long as the artist is good and their drawings are good. If you're shit, I'm not interested. Then there's sketchbooks, and you see it a lot online. There is even just this, actually, just seeing literally the sketchbooks, not even seeing inside them, but just these photos of piles of sketchbooks are really, really interesting. Just to see how people keep their books and what kinds of sketchbooks they use. But there's the age-old problem that any artist online, any content creator has, of like posting a photo of a fully finished piece that they maybe spent days painting, and it gets however many likes and shares, and then they share just some silly little doodle that they did on a napkin at a bar, and that gets 1 billion more likes and shares or whatever. Not that is necessarily important, but as an artist, it's an indicator of sort of like, likes and shares and comments are an indicator of how people are receiving your artwork. It can be nice to know, and it can be validating if a lot of people like a thing that you've worked hard on. But then people happen to really enjoy sketches. I think the general populace likes them because they're a little bit more relatable, because like anyone can do a doodle. So people see funny little doodles and go, "Oh, look at a funny little doodle." That's more something I can connect to a bit more. Whereas true artists know the work that goes into like a fully finished piece is a lot more something. I don't know. Some part of that relates to how people really enjoy looking through sketchbooks. Maybe I've got like a fibre or something in front of my eye. I can't grab it, but I can see it in front of myself. I really like these photos as well. Of like, these are cool spreads of sketchbooks. Elf. He's a good one. He's a Scottish guy whose work I'll get onto that. I'll talk about him in a bit. Yeah, these are some really good spreads of sketchbooks, and these are cool pictures of like. I like seeing pictures of like these events, these like drink and draw events, or just hang out and draw events, where people just hang out and draw, and it's cool to see. Oh fuck, where is it? Is it to hand? Is it close by? Give me a moment. Let me see if I can really quickly find a particular thing I'm looking for. I can. Good. Right. One of my favourite ever things from this book, which is like the Bible of graffiti. From the first time I saw this book, these pages stuck with me so much. Like, they were such an important part of like wanting to involve myself in this world, because it really made it speak to me in a way of seeing the shit that goes into it. Handfuls of caps from other spray cans, not just paint, keys copied and stolen and swapped, and all the outlines that you don't see that go into making pieces of graffiti and stuff. But this just one photo here of like people drawing in their sketchbooks, doing outlines and things, sharing photos, listening to music. There's like markers and cigarettes and drink and whatever, just people hanging out. Like, I first saw this book in maybe 2000-ish, 2001-ish, and right away just seeing these pages and this photo, it really spoke to me as like, fuck yeah, just fucking drawing and shit. And then that becomes part of this larger world of art and whatever. And sketchbooks and these kinds of photos are very much part of that. Look at that, I've been going for forever and I've barely even gotten into the actual book. Whatevs. So some of this stuff is like, it's cool. I like the very stylized stuff sometimes. Sometimes I don't. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just saying words now. There's at least a handful of artists in this book specifically that I would like to look at. Blue is really good. As it says, best known for his large-scale graffiti murals and accomplished animations. The animations he does via painting on walls. Maybe you've seen them, maybe you haven't, but they are very, very impressive. And I do like his sketchbooks. I believe, and I think it's clear, that he draws straight in ink, which is quite impressive. So that's a thing. And this, I like this because it feels very like graffiti artist drawing faces, and I appreciate that. And I mean, like I say, all of this is largely, if not all, from like street artists and graffiti artists, which is cool. And there's another level of that. Like, as I mentioned, looking at the Subway art book, street art and graffiti art, you suddenly see on walls around cities and things with almost, if you're not part of the world, you have almost no idea on like what went into making that happen and how that came to be. So it is cool to see sketchbooks from those kinds of artists specifically giving you some kind of insight into all that shit. Elf. I can't remember exactly where, but I found his artwork, again, early 2000s, and I liked his name, ELPH, and I liked, I don't know, his style. He clearly has, he doesn't have many pages in here. I thought there was more of his stuff in here. He clearly has sort of like inspiration from Japan and Japanese art and graffiti in general and various other things. And I liked his work straight away. And I don't know what I'm trying to say. We follow on each other on Instagram now, and it's good. I'm happy about that because it's cool that when that happens, if there's an artist you really like for years and years and years, and suddenly you're like contemporaries with them, it's a really bizarre but cool feeling. Also, his style, I really like how experimental he's gotten in more recent years with like animations and stuff. Definitely a cool one to look at. I like drawings of animals that are kind of like people but still very animals. And I like drawings of boxes, and these encapsulate all of those things. Who is this? Ericale Kane? I don't know. Someone. It's probably a bit disrespectful to be like that, isn't it? I can't pronounce their name. I don't give a fuck. Erosi. I've spoken about Erosi, probably not for many, many years, but I have a little book of Erosi's art. I really like his drawings. Like his drawings of bikes, for instance. I like his line work. Like his lines, the physicality of his lines and line weights. They've got a texture and almost like a doodly scribbliness to them, but they're very purposefully made to make like the structure of this bike, the way the parts of the bike sort of wrap around each other and stuff. You can't do that haphazardly, but it looks almost haphazardly done the way he has done it. And this is almost a straight up scan of a sketchbook. All these different parts of the pages and stuff stuck in. I really, really do like seeing that. Different bits of paper and stuff. Because it's cool to see these, if these are all just drawings from sketchbooks or prints or whatever, like cool, but it's really cool to see literally pages of sketchbooks with all kinds of shit stuck in and drawn on and photos and whatever. Those are really, really cool drawings. And that's a cool drawing. And I love, for a while, his tag, and it is sort of necessary to do that, was these bikes that he'd paint as quickly as anyone else would write their name in a tag. But his tag was these like wireframe bikes. He'd do different shapes and sizes and proportions and stuff. And I think that's really, really smart and interesting. These drawings are really, really, really sick. Hypnus. I don't know if that's how the name's pronounced. Lives in Rome. They do have a very European feel to them, these drawings. Especially these cats. Those are really cool. A lot of character in them. I think that's one of the reasons I like Lobster Robin's work. Not to just bang on about Lobster Robin, my special friend, again and again, but his work does have a European feel to it, and being that he's from Belgium, that makes sense. Belgium's in Europe, isn't it? I'm pretty sure Belgium's in Europe. Is Belgium in Europe? This is embarrassing, the fact that I'm even... Belgium, country in Europe. Yep, okay. Maths is not my strong suit, and equally not my strong suit is geography. Or science, or anything else, really. Life in general. Being a human. I don't know what I'm doing. I just like looking at pictures is all. I feel like there's at least one artist specifically I wanted to look at. Mudwig. I've always loved Mudwig. These weird abstract compositions of just stuff, and they almost look like things, but not. It's almost like AI, like old AI art, but hand drawn. And like there's cartoon eyes and like cartoon elements, but they're abstract shapes, and they're collages, but they're not really collages. Yeah, I really, really have liked his artwork for a long time. Rich T. I don't know if I necessarily like Rich T, but he either is or was somewhat local to me for a while. I think he was working with some people who lived locally. So he was like in the area. I never met him or anything, but I saw his work around. And yeah, it's pretty cool. Like bold, graphic shapes and shit. Whatever. These are cool. These paintings definitely have stolen at least both of these ideas for my own means in various ways over the years. Oh, Banksy! Oh, cool! Oh, let's look at Banksy's sketchbooks. Wow. Oh, look, all his ideas for his pieces he put, like a rat with a camera. Like, beware of the god instead of beware of the dog. And there's a person walking another person on a leash, and it says beware of the god instead of beware of the dog. Oh, wow, it's genius. Oh, Banksy's genius. He's fucking genius, man. Dreff was a big player in like early London graffiti days. Like when I was getting into graffiti, Dreff was one I sort of like had in my head as like his work is fucking good. The way he draws people, and I guess he's a black guy, and so his work reflects that. He draws black people, and you know that culture sort of comes through in his work, and I really like and appreciate that also. I feel like there's one particular artist I wanted to look at. I can't. This one. Who is it? Mr. Kern. I don't know if I've seen them around lately. I might have to look them up on Instagram or whatever. But I always loved these because it's like sketchbooks with a bunch of drawings, a bunch of funny characters and stuff. But then he's obviously hand painted colours on some of them, and I love that so much. And because they're really good as well. They're like good, fun, funny little characters. And they're good paintings, like good sort of like textures and folds on the clothing and stuff. Good details and shit. Mr. Kern. Yeah, I'll definitely have to look him up on Instagram. See if he's still going, if he's doing his thing recently. Good stuff. It's a little bit sad that there's so few pages of each artist. Like, they've crammed so many artists into this book, and that's an impressive feat in itself. But I almost, think it could be nice if they took out a few artists and put more pages of the artists they do have. But then it's like, who do you take out? Who do you keep in? Well, I could go through the book and say, take them out, take them out. Leave this person in, give them more pages, give this person more pages. These are some cool spreads. I like this. I like the colours. That matches my sort of ballpoint palette. I like these spray painted faces as well. I'm in two minds about like seeing photos of their artwork on walls as well as the sketchbooks. I almost would prefer just to see the sketchbooks. But at the same time, it is kind of cool to see, like, if you haven't seen their work before, you see the sketchbooks and you see at least some element for some of the artists of like what the work looks like painted on walls. I think around the time I first got this book, I was quite into typography and like, graffiti lettering and coming up with my own sort of fonts and things. So seeing stuff like this was always really, really interesting to me. Playing around with letters and styles and sizes and proportions of lettering and stuff is very, very, very interesting to me. Punk. I feel like Punk's still going, but looks really, really different to this. I think I follow Punk online, I'm not sure. Yeah, some cool graffiti work. But again, a whole page of like photos of painted pieces that aren't sketchbook drawings in a book that's supposed to be all sketchbooks. And I guess it doesn't have to be all sketchbook. I'm completely, it doesn't. I'll just shut up and enjoy some artwork, regardless if it's photos of walls or sketchbooks or whatever. Well, there's some interesting pieces. I think this person was in that the Juxtapose illustration book. I recognise some of their stuff from there. Sat 1. That's really interesting. Larvae into a bee. It's very cool. Good shapes, good lines, good colours. Very good lines and shapes and colours. It looks like it could be a thing, like an arm and a hand and maybe a head, but at the same time could just as easily be just some abstract shit. Lots and lots of lettering. I do like the lettering. Ooh. I like it when sketchbooks get really sort of messy and multimedia-y also. If those were sketchbook pages anyway. What would turquoise do? Will this fuck everything up? Will this add tone to the piece? Oh, they don't blend, do they? Oh, I fucked that up. Oh, it wasn't the turquoise that fucked it up. It was me! The call was coming from inside the house all along. I'm the problem, it's me. Isn't that was it Taylor Swift or something? I don't know. I only listen to music by pedophiles and Nazis. I don't know Taylor Swift songs, come on. See, that was a... See, I'm playing on the thing from before, where I was talking about. These are the other stuff from before. This is a very interesting one. Seeing the Mona Lisa was the biggest fucking. I can only assume the rest of that. I did see the rest of that message, but for what I screenshotted, I believe and can only assume the rest of that would have said waste of time ever or something like that. It probably would have. They probably mean seeing the Mona Lisa was the biggest fucking waste of time. Something. Because that would make sense, wouldn't it? I know that's what the I remember. Even if I don't remember the wording, I remember the overall tone of that hot take being that this person was unimpressed by the Mona Lisa. And I've never seen the Mona Lisa in person, but I have to agree because... Now here's the because. See, a lot of these hot takes, again, they're not even hot takes. They're just like, well, yeah, of course that's the way it is. That makes a lot of sense. Why would you consider that a hot take? You fucking dummies. No, it fully, completely and totally makes sense that seeing the Mona Lisa in person would be an underwhelming experience. Because I know this person is an artist that put forth this hot take. But what the fuck am I... So I for an artist to go and see the Mona Lisa, it would be a very underwhelming experience. Because you can't really see the Mona Lisa. You can only get so far away from it. There's a barrier and it's behind bulletproof glass or whatever. Like there's a limit to how much you can literally see the Mona Lisa. Because the Mona Lisa isn't... It's almost not even a piece of artwork. It's a tourist attraction. For most people, and that's like most people who go and see the Mona Lisa, go and see the Mona Lisa to say they have seen the Mona Lisa. They say, oh, we went to Paris, we went to wherever, we saw the Eiffel Tower, went to the Louvre, we saw the Mona Lisa, we saw this, we saw that. Look, here's a selfie of me with the Mona Lisa in the background behind a crowd of 100 people. Like that's the thing they do. They go to see the Mona Lisa to say they went to see the Mona Lisa. Whereas I think it's safe to assume most artists, if they would want to see the Mona Lisa, would want to see it as a piece of art. You want to see it up close. Because the Mona Lisa, people could have differing opinions on this. My hot take is that the Mona Lisa is as famous as it is for good reason, because in terms of how it's painted, for like when it was painted, in terms of the skill and technique and everything that went into creating this portrait, which it's almost an unassuming portrait in a way, but it's one of those instances where like something's done so well that you just take it as for granted. You take it as sort of like, well, yeah, of course it's good. It better be good. It's, you know, one of the greatest artists to have ever lived painted a portrait. It better be good. So you just sort of accept that it is a competently painted portrait. But if you understand, like, again, the time, the technique, and I mean the time is in the era in which it was created, how it was made, who it was made by, all of these elements come together to make what is a fantastically painted portrait. Maybe it doesn't deserve to have quite the place in history as many other works of art, but it certainly does deserve to be regarded as a masterwork, as a masterpiece within art history. But being that that's the case, if you're going to go and see the Mona Lisa, you want to get up close to it and see if you can see the brush strokes, which you almost can't, which is part of the whole point. It's seamless in terms of how it's painted. You want to see the detail, see the grain, the cracks. You want to see the texture of the canvas, the textures of the paint that was used. You want to see all the elements of this painting, not just see the painting as a finished product. Which is what I talk about a lot when I talk about, my artistic influences and whatnot. Like the early 90s painted comics, if it's Fabry, Bisley or whoever, being able to see the brush strokes and see the process within the piece that was created is incredibly important to any artist. Specifically to me, it's one of the main reasons I like looking at art, is looking at the seeing the person within the work, seeing evidence that they were there, that they made marks that created this piece of artwork. But you can't see that if you go and see the Mona Lisa. You can see a tourist attraction behind bulletproof glass, behind a barrier that I assume you've got to pay to see. I don't know, maybe it's not the case, but if nothing else, you've got to go to fucking France to see it. And it's just not... Is it in France? I believe it's in France. It is in the Louvre, isn't it? The Louvre. It's in the Louvre. British word for toilet. The Louvre, or whatever the fuck they call it. And so you can't fully appreciate the Mona Lisa for what it is, because it's been elevated to the status of tourist attraction, which is, it's a bummer. It really is. It's a damn shame. And as such, I can absolutely see that going to see the Mona Lisa, especially as an artist, would feel like a waste of time. Because what are you even seeing? You're just going there, you get, shown around, fucking pushed through, out the other end. Cool, you've seen it now, you've had your 5 minutes, now fuck off. Let the next group of people see it, or whatever. Again, I don't know how the system works. I don't go anywhere ever. So yeah, not a hot take that I'm going to sort of judge you for. Some of these hot takes, at least one or two of them, I'm definitely now judging the people that sent them to me. But this isn't one of them. I haven't seen the Mona Lisa in person, because why would I? Because it'd be a big fucking waste of time. But if I did, I assume I'd probably have a similar experience and a similar reaction to this person. And so I can't say you're exactly right, it is a big waste of time, but I can say I see where you're coming from, and I'm on board with your premise based on my limited knowledge, etc. Yeah. You. The next hot take is the most the most, what do I say, the most commonly given hot take within all the hot takes that were sent to me by people. Some variation of this was sent way more than any others. There was the modern art one. There was quite a few people that mentioned modern art. I didn't show a lot of them, but I showed one specifically. But there were quite a few people that had something to say about modern art in various ways. There's another one a bit later on that you'll see that was also quite a lot of people had something to say about it, which is totally fair. We will get to that one. But this was by far the most stated opinion, which again, I mean, call it a hot take. It doesn't seem to be a hot. Is it a hot take if everyone feels this way about it? And that is that hyper realistic or like photorealistic artwork, drawings, paintings, whatever, suck. What have we got? Easy as fuck. Well, I don't know about that, but I get it. Glorified printers with no creativity. Hyperrealism sucks. Hyperrealism is fucking boring and uncreative. There, I said it. I feel so mean. That person should feel mean. I know who they are. They know who they are. Fuck that person specifically. They should feel mean. Obviously, I don't mean that, but I'm just being funny. Fuck that person specifically. Cunt. Fuck you. How dare you be mean to these boring, uncreative hyperrealism artists. I do have opinions on this. I mean, being able to paint and draw something in a very realistic fashion, being able to reproduce what you are looking at on a page is absolutely a skill and absolutely takes time and effort and maybe even a degree of talent in order to produce that. To be able to look at a thing, even if it takes hours, if it takes days or weeks, to be able to look at a thing and reproduce what you are looking at on a piece of paper, a canvas, whatever, does certainly take skill. Because, I mean, arguably, you can say that about portrait artists. You could say that about the Mona Lisa. Well, it's just a fucking portrait. Why don't you just take a photo? Fuck you. Or I could paint a picture of some shit I could just look at and take a photo of. What's the fucking point? But you can say that about portrait artists. All they're doing is drawing something that they're just looking at. So why bother? What you hope, at least, is that each individual portrait artist puts out there what they see in the person. They're putting out their vision of that person and their movements and their motions and their emotions. They're putting their personal thoughts and creativity into creating an image of a person that they're producing a portrait of. And so you hope that by doing so, the artwork has an amount of life to it, has some feeling within it, knowing that the artist that did it really put like their all into creating this portrait of a person. And also, like for instance with caricatures, a good caricature of a person looks more like that person than just a standard portrait would, because it pulls out and exaggerates elements of that person's face that make them look like that person. So it ends up looking more like that person than anyone else, or than a photo would, because it's more easily recognizable as that person than it would be in like a group photo or whatever. That's what a good caricaturist does, and so potentially that's what a good portrait artist does as well. They are able to see in a person what really makes them and reproduce that through a painting or a drawing or whatever it is, to create like a new work of art based on just someone's fucking face. Now, this hot take, however, isn't saying that. This hot take is saying realistic, hyper-realistic, photorealistic drawings, paintings, artwork, whatever, is boring and uncreative. And to some degree, I agree. I'm not going to specifically say, nah, it takes a lot of skill or whatever, because a large part of what I think a lot of people find interesting about art is the creativity involved, is the ideas, which also that can get into a whole other thing, because people say it's uncreative, but then people will look at conceptual artwork and say it's rubbish because it's just a guy smashing a thing against a wall. It doesn't take any skill. But then realistic drawings take a lot of skill, but they don't have any creativity. So it seems that people want it all. People want art full of creativity, that's really, really well produced, that takes a lot of skill to make. And if anything doesn't have one of those elements, they pass it off as rubbish and uncreative and say it sucks. Which is, it's, again, I'm somewhat in agreement. You know, I like art to be creative and I like art to be well made. That's what's going to make me want to look at it more and more. That doesn't mean artwork that isn't so creative and artwork that isn't so well made doesn't have just as much right to exist as any other art. I think the issue is with photorealistic art is it's often by people who maybe don't know much about art. They see hyperrealistic art as the best thing anyone's ever seen or ever done. Wow, they painted that photo of a girl with water on her face exactly like how it looks in the photo that they'd already taken. And that's where it gets to be a bit boring and a bit annoying to be an artist who, you know, tries to create original things. To have these copies of photographs be regarded as the best art ever. Which it's not. It's not the best art ever. This is the best art ever. Everything I do specifically is the best art ever. Everything else is whatever. Ha ha ha. I'm so funny. I should get an award. A comedy award. And then have it taken away because I exposed myself to people I was working with. Ha ha ha. And that's another problem with this as a subject, is there's a lot you can say about it. It's not as simple as just, I don't feel it's as simple as just hyperrealistic drawings suck. Because there's a lot of, I get tagged very often in, you know, ballpoint artwork, because I do a lot of that. And so people will tag me or send me like hyper-realistic ballpoint portraits or just drawings or whatever. And I find them to be fairly uninteresting, because part of why I like ballpoint art is the scratchiness of it and making shit out of lines and taking this scratchy little thing and making cool, fun, funny pictures with it. But then when you make all your lines perfectly smooth and you perfectly replicate a photo with ballpoint pens, it becomes a little bit uninteresting for me personally to look at. So ultimately, I think I'm on people's side when they say hyperrealism sucks and it's boring and whatever, but not without a caveat of saying that it takes a lot of skill to do. You know, it's a skill that's different to actually being creative, but it's a skill nonetheless. And it has, you know, just as much legitimacy and just as much right to exist as any other art form. But it's difficult, because sometimes I'll see a piece that I'm genuinely impressed by when someone's created a photorealistic painting. but that's like one out of every 1,000, and the rest of them can just about fuck off because they are. I think subject matter plays a lot, because very often when you see hyper realistic artwork, it is like a woman's face with like cellophane over her face with lots of weird little lighting effects and stuff, or raindrops on a thing, so there's lots of little details, and it's like, so like, who cares? Like, if I wouldn't want to look at this picture anyway, like I wouldn't care to look at a photo of a girl with water on her face, so why would I want to look at a painting of that? Whereas if it's something like, I don't know, something creative, something with cool lighting, something going on, that's a bit more something than something else, then I'd be more interested to look at it. Dear God, have I spoken enough about this? Do I need to say more words? I think I'm just trying to say, like, I'm with you, I'm on board with your premise, that it usually is boring and shit and uncreative. But I probably could talk about it for more, but I think I'll stop there, because otherwise I will just be going on and on about the same fucking thing. You get it though. I'm, you know. Fucking whatever. What's the next one? Oh, AI. Oh, Jesus. I should have left this one till later. I could leave it till later. I can talk about something else. This was the other one that a lot of people had something to say about AI. Overnight pretendy fake wannabe artists using AI to develop your art skills style. Art skills style is okay, but then they went on to say, but selling AI art is whack or whatever. Do I have thoughts about this as well? On a basic level, the idea of using an image generation system as a basis for generating ideas to then work from in a more creative manner, that sounds good on its own. That's like, well, yeah, of course, that's, you know, it's just, you're just using it as an aid to generate ideas. Obviously, we can get this out of the way. Yeah, creating art solely with AI and then calling it your own art and maybe even selling it as your own art is shit, and that's just silliness. That's even less creative than photorealistic painting. I would rather look at hyper-realistic artwork than, you know, hyper-realistic like drawings and paintings than I would AI generated imagery. However, there are several factors that stop me personally being able to enjoy AI art or images or whatever. For one thing, the environmental impact is a thing. That is a thing. It's unavoidable. Not to say, so tough shit, deal with it, but if you're going to talk about AI, you have to at least, you have to accept and mention the fact that there absolutely is environmental issues to take into account, where it uses obscene amounts of energy, obscene amounts of water, you know, in cooling the servers and whatever. It's ridiculous amounts of energy involved in even just small like chat GPT searches or image creation or whatever, the environmental impact is ridiculous and unavoidable, and that should be enough to stop people wanting to fuck with AI. But obviously, it's not going to be. There's a lot of reasons I should be a vegan, but obviously, I'm not going to be. Well, not yet, anyway. We'll see. I might get there someday soon. Also, there's the theft of it all. Well, like when AI, I'm calling it AI, but being fully aware that it isn't artificial intelligence. It's a computer program controlled by people. It's computer learning. I know it's not necessarily controlled by people, but it's not an intelligence. It's any image generated by AI is not generated by AI. It's put together from other images collected from outside sources, those images being made by other artists, not giving consent to have their work used in the generation of AI images most of the time. That is to say, they don't give consent most of the time. I can't speak for everyone, but that's where all AI imagery comes from. It comes from existing images. If you say, make me a picture of a cat in a spacesuit in space holding a lightsaber, then it will search its database for cats and what constitutes a cat. Then it will search its database for spacesuits, space, lightsabers, and it will find images people have already made of all of those things and put all those images together and sort of come up with something it thinks is probably what you're looking for. So it's just stealing other people's artwork to give you a funny little picture of a cat. And I don't think that's very cool at all. I mean, there's an argument to be made where it's like, well, if you're not planning on selling it, it's just, it's not too different from looking through Google Images or looking through Pinterest or whatever, or looking through people's Instagrams to get ideas from other people's artwork so that you can then take those ideas and make them into your own thing. But also it's controlled, AI is controlled by corporations who use all this data for their own means. You're not just, like if you look through someone's Instagram and go, oh, hey, that's a cool idea, and you use the idea in a way to make your own artwork, and then you tag them in it so they get credit, none of that happens. It's all corporate, it's all money, and you are the product. And it's theft, and it's the environmentally disastrous. All of these elements make me look at AI and go, ugh, I can't enjoy it. In a similar way to how I look at art made by known abusers, known pieces of shit, known Nazis. I look at the artwork and I go, ugh, this is that kind of artwork. I get that feeling when I look at AI. It can make some incredibly visually interesting things. And I can look at it and go, that's a visually interesting thing, but it's always tarnished by, it's AI, it's made with this system, and it's made by these people, and it's made with money in mind, and it's also cynical. None of it's pure. Also, the main reason I like looking at art, as I said, is for the human aspect of it. Looking at a thing, knowing a person sat there and made that. A person put in hours of their life, years of their life to learn how to do a thing. And I'm looking at the results of that when I see any piece of actual art. But when I look at AI, I see some shit that a computer went, I guess this and this, and now here's a computer-generated image of a horse with big tits. I'll jerk off to it, but I won't be happy about it. You know, there are... This is one of my favourite art books that I own. It's THR, or The Harsh Reality, and DFW, Down for Whatevs, by Barry McGee, who is quite the legend, excuse me, in the graffiti/street art world. And the other book was all like street art and shit, and drawings and things. And this relates to that. And like I say, it's one of my favourite art books that I own. And I recently pulled it out from under a stack of shit. And I thought it'd be nice to look through it again. Because I like the size of it, the dimensions, the matte finish on the cover. It's filthy. Because I don't take care of my possessions. Because they are just that. They are mere possessions. So it doesn't really fucking matter, does it? But it's a really nice book, Barry McGee. It's physically nice. The paper quality's nice. Again, like a matte finish to it, which is good. Glossy books can be good too, but it's largely photography, or there's photographs, but also like some scanned artworks and things. But there's a lot of like this, like these are the kinds of photos. I mean, nowadays you see them quite a lot, but in terms of like graffiti, it's these moments. I've got a mustache here. These moments that get captured. Like these are some guys with carrier bags with spray cans in on their way to paint graffiti at night, down pathways by fences and things. More of the same, all hooded up, covered, ready to go amongst the trees. And it's just these little moments that, like, similar to sketches of pieces of graffiti. You see graffiti exist, you see it happen, but there's very little evidence of it having happened past the final product. So it's these moments in time that, if you have spent time as a graffiti writer, you know the feeling of like walking to a spot, finding your way to a spot, like seeing a spot during the day and then trying to figure out how you get to it, and then getting all your shit together, gearing up and heading out on a nighttime excursion across train tracks, over walls, to get to these spots, climbing amongst the trees and such. And that's the thing that maybe you might not be aware of, is very often graffiti writers will take their cans to a spot in just disposable plastic bags rather than like a big duffel bag, because then you're carrying a big duffel bag around, and then if your cans are empty, you're carrying a big duffel bag full of empty cans. Whereas these, you can just happily toss them away and not even think about it. And then once you're done painting, you're just walking around casually without some bags. So it's nice, it's sort of sensible. Climbing, getting through fences and shit. Painting at a wall. It's these moments, man, these moments. Big fucking tubs of pasta. I love these photos, just people doing their thing, and that's quite smart. I don't know if that was done purely for the visual, or if it is a commentary on, you know, how there are homeless people there, but you don't see them. Bunch of shit. I'm not going to comment on everything. This is obviously the back of, or like the inside of an envelope. Maybe that's the same. Which I don't know if you've noticed, but certain types of envelopes, usually white envelopes, have this weird lining on them sometimes, different patterns, and I think it's quite cool that he's done something with that. Cut out a van from a photo and then on the underside put the back of an envelope, or the inside of an envelope. Photos of people doing things, cool, whatever. Even that's just a picture of a wall That's just a picture of a wall. But as a graffiti writer, you look at that and you go, well, they're painting over graffiti. This is several different kinds of paint to paint out graffiti. There's something visually pleasing to me about that wall and the texture therein. Some of Barry McGee's drawings. I don't love all of his drawings, but I do quite like some of them. If nothing else, he does have a remarkably clean style. These being done with like a brush and ink. And if you've seen videos of him work, he's quite meticulous. He's very careful with his brush strokes. He takes care to, put them where he means to. Whereas I'd be like, yeah, fucking dog face, fire, whatever. And it would look shit as a result. But, I really like the cleanliness of his lines and such. And there's a few of my favourite things of Barry McGee's is his installation pieces are one of them, where he gets like vans and piles up vans and trucks and things all smashed up, graffiti painted on them. And then these are like, that's a thing that graffiti writers do, is they'll stand on each other's shoulders to get higher up to paint higher spots. And these are like sculptures of Barry McGee's that he makes, which are very, very cool. And then his collages of pieces. It's a weird, like, it's almost not visually pleasing and not necessarily visually cohesive as a whole, but the different elements that go into it and the different stories each element tells, I like those bits of them. And graffiti. So his graph name, his tag, is Twister. And he's got a very clean, unique hand style as well. He also paints these screws because it's like twist thing. Some of his faces. I like some of his faces, but not necessarily these ones. To me, these are kind of like, sort of whatever. But it's his, because he does ballpoint drawings as well, and his ballpoint faces are quite cool. They have a unique look to them. I like this, where he's obviously taken various photos of vans and trucks with I guess his graffiti and others on them, cut them out of the photos and then piled them up. And this is something he actually will do in an installation. He'll take these vans and I guess use a crane or whatever to pile them up. And it's a neat little like visual photographic encapsulation of that he does. And these are his ballpoint pieces. Again, very meticulously made, where mine would be really scribbly if I was going to do this. But you can see each line is very carefully done in terms of like direction and stuff to make these hairy faces. And they are very hairy looking. And I like that. These are really visually interesting to me. I like them a lot. I like that you can see they're done with a ballpoint pen, but he hasn't tried to hide that or anything. And like the weird sort of shapes he gives them and the eyes and everything. And it's like a mustache and a beard and hair, but kind of is, kind of isn't. I think that's quite cool. I also like the fact that these pages are probably about actual size for these drawings. And so theoretically, I could take these pages out of the book and frame them and not like claim they're originals or anything, but they'd look like original Barry McGee drawings. And I have thought about doing that, and I still might at some point, because that'd be quite a neat little thing to frame. I mean, I could like get them copied or something, I suppose, but sometimes I like tearing pages out of books because they're my books, and if I want to pull the pages out and put them in frames, I will. I do what the fuck I want. And these, like all these paintings he does, are quite cool. like they don't interest me necessarily, but they're all done with like that blue masking tape. And I've seen he uses, I mean, he uses brushes too, I'm sure, but I've seen very often for these sorts of things, he uses those like sponge wedge things on a stick to paint stuff. So like these are done in that way where he'll mask the shape off and then paint a bit and then mask off the other bits. And I've got to assume that these are done in a similar sort of way. I've got to assume he does that purely as like just an artistic expression thing. He feels that he wants to paint these shapes, nice and clean blocks and stuff. And so he does it. And so I appreciate them for that. That it's just him doing the art things he wants to do. And I like these as found objects. The illustrations you see on boxes and things, it's quite cool. More there. I like that. Josh 1. It's a really nice big piece. More hairy faces. That one, it looks like it's even got a mouth. It looks like it's got teeth that he drew over. And a nose there, maybe? These got, that's almost like a sketchbook page, which is cool. Little collaged envelope elements and photos and such. And of course, well, not of course, but Barry McGee's been doing his thing for many, many years. And so he's going to be a writer from back in the day when actual printed photos were a thing that were used in the graffiti community, where they'd be printed, passed around, shared all over the place. So for him, having physical photos that he can cut out is obviously an important part of his work and an important part of his story to tell. And so the fact that they show up in his work, in his sketchbooks and stuff, is very, very cool. It's a good sign of that. A sign of the times, you could call it. I really like that. It's good shaped body. Just some of his drawings and things. Graph photos. And I like that this book is, in a way, an extension of, like, these pages. Because, like, this whole book is made up of these, but it becomes a larger version of just drawings together with photos, all sort of, like, collaged together next to his paintings and things. It's a very interesting, like, artifact to have a book like this that comes from such a specific like world and community of graffiti and art and such. It's like a window into the graph world, man. And again, I don't love these, but that's like my little corner scribbles on my pages or my grids that I draw sometimes. That would be like me taking up whole pages with just these because I like them visually. So I'll put them in the book. Other people might look at it and think, what the fuck is this? This is worthless. But it's part of his art and his expression, the stuff he makes. So it's part of the collected works. And these are really cool. I saw one of these in person where he had an exhibition in London where I got this book, where he uses thin sheets of wood and builds this they call it like a pimple or something he calls it, or a wart, I'm not sure. You can kind of see the bits of wood where he uses the wood to like sculpt a big bump in the wall, so this like is coming out of the wall, and then he covers it in all these framed drawings and photos, just like everything in this book. That photo is in the book. Photos of graffiti, photos of stuff, photos of people doing graffiti, ink drawings, pencil drawings, these ballpoint hairy face drawings, his geometric paintings and things. And I love the frames that just have the bright like reddish orange paper or whatever in them. Or maybe it's painted, I don't know, but I really like that. Those like dotted around really enhance the whole thing. But I love that. Like that could almost be an entire exhibition just in that one piece. But when he does exhibitions, he does that, and he has these, like he'll have a collection like this, maybe of this size, just of these, and then just of little painted faces and just of geometric patterns all arranged, and then some like found objects and these sculptures and these big painted graffiti lettering pieces. Things like this in his exhibitions, things like this. Because you can see, you know, the patterns, the geometric patterns and things he paints, and they're like, oh, okay, you know, he's taping up shapes and just painting them, and it's whatever. But it's when you realise it's almost like a compulsive thing for him, I guess, where he does it this much that he paints on pieces of wood, just board after board after board, of these shapes and colours, and then makes these collages out of them. Like, it's almost impressive in that respect. Some of his vans, those are really cool. Like, they're not inherently cool in themselves, but if you walk into an exhibition space and you see those on their noses, and they've got graffiti and stuff on, it's quite a thing to behold. Not to, you know, blow smoke up his ass too much. And yeah, these things on their own are sort of whatever. Like, okay, a bunch of squares painted on a bit of wood, but then together as a sort of a collage of these painted shapes of his, it's quite something. And then these sculptures, these statues just get higher and higher. Is that 5 bodies in there? And these will often be like the hand, you can see it's blurred, where it's I guess animatronic. So that hand is attached to a motor. There's a wire here, and so you there's videos of his exhibitions where you can hear it going gurk, gurk, gurk. So it looks like it's painting the amaze tag, which is cool. It's a cool thing. Like, it's nothing too outrageous, but it's pretty cool. An upturned van with the thing. And then he turned that into a bathroom, and he's got a guy tagging on the thing. Again, the amount of these fucking things he paints, he must just spend days and days painting these things. Weird, compulsive fucking freak that he is. And these are some of his installation spaces, and I love them. I think they're great. These vans piled up, these TVs piled up. Collage of all of his shapes around it. Well, that's fucking cool. That's really fucking cool. I think that's brilliant. And that's a good example of one of his bumps on a wall. You can see how it comes out. That's one of those ideas that, like, you look at and go, what? But if you thought of that idea first, you'd be like, fuck yeah, this is the best. I've definitely stolen this idea multiple times of having loads of different frames full of different drawings that fit a theme and just pile them all together in an odd shape rather than have everything like squared up neatly and tidily. I like collections of things like that. Like that. I like them. I like them very, very much. They are pleasing to me, to my eyes. Of course, because nothing can ever work as it's supposed to, I'm having to record the audio for this bit, just this bit, separately, because the microphone was plugged in but not properly or something, and there was some weird buzzing or I don't know. And I would have just recorded this audio and just put it in and not mentioned the fact that I'm recording the audio separately. But I figured if, just in case anyone notices any incongruities with the audio, suddenly you can't hear the noises of pens, or like you might see me moving my hands around when I'm not saying anything that warrants me moving my hands around like that or whatever. And I'm sure you'd watch and you'd go, oh, the audio's different. I guess he just recorded this bit separately. I just feel it necessary to mention that I'm recording this bit of the audio separately, which is a bastard because it means I just have to sort of try and remember what I said already while recording it and then try and repeat that, but make it sound like it's off the top of my... The trials I have to go through, tortures of the damned that I have to deal with in creating all of this for you, the people. Anyway, selling a paintbrush with dried paint on should be illegal unless it was my idea first. Now this one's actually kind of a bit of an inside joke between me and the lovely, delicious person that sent this particular hot take, and it's because they had seen a paintbrush for sale, caked in paint, attached to a board and within a frame. Like that was a thing that someone had maybe not made, but like it had been created through the process of their creation, and they thought, oh hey, that's neat, I'll sell it, fucking whatever. And so that person saw that and showed me, and we laughed and we thought that's silly. However, had I thought of that, maybe I'd have done the same. And for instance, I've had people tell me they really like how my palettes look, my paint palettes, and that people haven't necessarily suggested that they would buy them, but the fact that people like how they look leads me to believe, hey, if I framed these, they'd make cool, fun little 3D abstract pieces of artwork that people might like and enjoy. But just as equally, people might look at them and go, that's fucking stupid. Why would you sell that shit? I'd sell that shit if I thought of it, but I didn't. So now I'm going to sit here and fucking complain. So it's a bit of an inside joke, this particular take. However, it does raise a few good points of a few things. One, for instance, is our approach to such things. For instance, if you take as an example the banana duct taped to the wall, with the banana that's on the wall with the tape holding the banana to the wall, that whole thing. We all look at that and go, that's fucking silly, that's stupid, art's a joke, what a fucking shit joke modern art is. Modern art, more like modern shit, more like modern pile of absolute fucking shit. However, I think it's fair to say if anybody else who saw that thought of it and thought they could get away with it, they'd do the same. If anyone else thought they could stick a banana to a wall, sell it as a piece of artwork, and make fucking zillions off of it, you just would. Which it does. It is an interesting idea that it brings to mind. Is it that stupid of a thing then? If not only that it makes people talk and it elicits a reaction from people, and in that regard, it's probably a successful work of art because that's maybe what it was intended to do. It was intended to have people look at it and go, what the fuck is this fucking bunch of bullshit? And that's exactly what people did. And so the artwork, in that respect, has won the game of art. But it also, by raising that reaction in people, highlights the fact that everyone wants the quick payday for a stupid idea they've had, but you don't get it. Tough. Everybody says, oh, my kid could have made that, but your kid didn't make it. I made it, and I sold it for $100 million. So fuck you, and fuck your kid, you stupid ugly kid. Probably ugly. I don't know, most kids are ugly. But also, I feel there is a positive that can be taken from this, which is, outside of thinking this is a bunch of shit, why would somebody do this? I can't believe they do this, but I would absolutely do this had I the idea to do this. And it's not just the idea, it's the idea and the connections to be able to get it in a gallery, and the connections to be able to get someone to buy it and pretend the sale was legitimate. We've already spoken about all of this with regards to the sales of modern artwork and such. So not everyone is in a position to stick a banana to a wall and call it art and sell it. Not everybody physically can do that. Not everyone could make that happen. But what they can do is see that someone has stupid fucking ideas and is making a buttload of money off of it, and take that as inspiration and say, well, if people like that, then why don't I try and do something even better? If this is a stupid idea, why don't I go and create something? People will sit there and say, my kid could have done this. Well, your kid didn't do it. You didn't do it. So why aren't you doing it? Why aren't you making shit instead of complaining about other shit that people have made? How about, instead of whinging that someone stuck a banana to a wall, that someone's selling a paintbrush caked in paint, which is not even a terrible idea, it's kind of neat. Instead of complaining about that shit, how about you go and make something and make other people look at your shit and go, hey, wow, that's cool. Or even make something that people will look at and go, this is a bunch of shit. Why would you even bother taking the time to make this? You hack. You fraud. You bumbling piece of fart. You fart made physical. You manifested physical fart. You cunt. So yeah, ha, it's an inside joke kind of, but also somewhat a hot take and an opinion somebody has, selling this paintbrush with dry paint on. Stupid, unless I was the one who thought of it. Funny, ha, and ha. But take that and be inspired by it and go and make your own paintbrushes covered in paint. And make them better. Make paintbrushes covered in paint with googly eyes on and a funny little face and a little make the handle like a penis, like a little penis, and put it in a bucket of piss. Because that's all you're worth, the lot of you. You amount to about a bucket of piss. There's no such thing as art block. Always something to draw, just not as well as what ... and then the rest is something. But I think for this one we can take the first sentence as the premise of there is no such thing as art block. Now that is quite a hot take, I feel. I've quite recently actually heard other people decry this similar sentiment, or a similar sentiment to this, in the idea that there isn't such a thing as art block. It's just, there's always something to do, so go and do it. However, I would argue that there is such a thing as art block, but it's not different from any other lack of inspiration. Artists just call it art block because they are artists and they're really full of themselves, and so everything has to do with being an artist. Art block is just the way of describing it. Ultimately, you're just feeling a little bit uninspired. You just don't necessarily have the same get up and go that you might usually be filled with. Maybe you draw all day, every day, and then suddenly you hit a wall where you just don't feel like you've got it in you. That's not to suggest that you've run out of things to draw. It means you've just hit that wall. It happens with everyone, everywhere, in every walk of life. There's blocks of all forms. I assume musicians have that. Writer's block is a thing. I know writer's block, and I assume that works for songwriters as much as book writers, as much as movie writers, as much as copywriters, as much as, I don't know, graffiti writers. What other kind of writers are there? I'm getting sick of saying the word writers. Fuck me. Writer's block is a thing where you hit a point where there's nothing coming out of you. The well is dry, as it were. You need to wait for that well to refill. And that's not to say the only way to combat these feelings is to wait for inspiration to strike, because you can actively try to find inspiration. You can find it in a book. You can find it through more creation. If you've got, quote unquote artist block, art block, whatever, you might not be able to, as I guess this sentence was maybe going on to say, there's always something to draw, just not as well as what I assume you might not normally draw, or you might normally draw, or whatever. Is you can sort of sometimes, occasionally, combat art block by not trying to make good art, by just scribbling around, literally just scribbling shit on a page, throwing paint around. And in that, you might find the energy of doing that reinvigorates you to create more, or you might create or draw a shape that you hadn't really thought about before that might inspire, the drawing of a body in that shape, or something, or some colour combination that strikes you, gives you an idea for something. So I feel that there are ways of combating these lulls in inspiration and inspired creativity. So you can say there is no such thing as art block, but that's just a label given to a sudden, maybe prolonged lack of inspiration, which is a thing, and can also be created and possibly even exacerbated, made worse by depression, for instance, which is something I deal with, much to my chagrin. You can, be having a great day, and then randomly, out of nowhere, depression can strike, and suddenly you don't have it in you to create anymore. You don't have it in you to eat, or exercise, or brush your teeth, or shower, or take care of yourself. But then you might not see it as necessarily a depressive episode. You might just see it as, I don't feel inspired anymore, and you might call it art block. So I think there is such a thing as art block, but it's not necessarily just one thing. It's a spectrum. Art block, like autism, is a spectrum, and most artists know about that, because most artists are autistic fucking weirdos. Have I spoken about that enough? Jesus Christ. Yeah, it's a thing. Sure, art block. It's, it's real. Yeah. Spoodabadoo. Probably. I feel like I said more about that before, and now I'm trying to remember if there was anything else I said. No, that's probably it, isn't it? I'm just trying to fill time now. It's something that bears thinking about, though, isn't it? Art block. I mean, whether or not it exists. I don't know if this person, maybe that if they hear me talking about it, maybe they'll be upset that I've said that they are at least in some part incorrect, because they've said art block isn't a thing and I say it is. It's just, yeah, it happens to us all. I feel like it's happened to me quite recently. You know, I get so, I spend most of my time these days working on commissions and things, and then I think, like, maybe I get a moment to sit down and draw for myself, and suddenly I can't think of anything to draw and anything I want to draw. I have plenty of ideas, and there's plenty of other things I can be working on, comics and such, but I sit down and I'm like, I don't know, I don't feel that there's anything in me at the moment to create. And maybe it's burnout is part of art block. You're drawing and drawing and drawing, and you hit that wall of just like, ugh, just give me a fucking rest. Let me regenerate my art batteries, put some more gas in my art generator, reignite my art flame, take an art Viagra to reinvigorate my art boner so I can create more art with my boner, with my big tumescent art boner, my massive art penis, my big art cock, my artistic dick, my paint prick, my my little artist's willy, my pencil dick. Hey, that was funny. I've completely lost the thread of what the fuck my intentions were in talking about that. We all get depressed, and sometimes it's not as easy to keep going as you might hope. Sometimes that can be called art block. Sometimes it can be called cock block. When I'm painting with my art cock, I don't get art block. I get cock blocked by art block with my art cock. I think I've run that joke into the ground about as Jesus. All right, what's next? Possibly the hottest take of them all. Multiple people came in with this one, or something. A version of this one, a variety. A version. There were a variety. Many people have many versions of this hot take, which is me. Like Ewan is underrated. Ewan's the most handsome. My art's the hottest take ever. Isn't that nice? Aren't people lovely? Aren't people just bloody lovely. Isn't everyone nice? Isn't everyone just bloody sickeningly wonderful and nice and adorable? And I want to kiss all of you on the mouths, on your collective mouths, and I want to touch all of your genitals with consent. Of course, I would never do it without consent. That would be rude. Like, outside of, it being a criminal offence, it's just rude, isn't it? You don't just do that without permission, without consent. You don't just go touching people's genitals. Thank you all. Thank you. It's very, very kind. I wasn't fishing for any of that when I said hot takes. I genuinely meant give me hot takes and opinions about art and artists and whatever. And a whole bunch of people were very, very kind and said very, very kind and nice things about me. And I appreciate it. Sometimes I don't hear nice things enough. I get nice comments and things every now and again about my art and stuff, which I appreciate. But, it's nice to have just compliments about me. It feels nice. As if I don't get enough validation online. I need more. Why do you think I do so much? YouTube, Patreon, Instagram. I constantly push it out there, hoping and praying for feedback, for validation. Dear God, please tell me I'm good. Please tell me I'm good. Please tell me it's all worthwhile. Please tell me I haven't wasted my life. I mean, I know I've wasted my life. That's not really up for debate. It just is what it is. But no, I love and appreciate all of you. I do. I try. I get a lot of messages from people just in general in the course of a day. Because I'm wildly popular. And sometimes, often, in fact, very often, it's a real struggle to keep up with them all. And so if I ever haven't responded to any messages that you've sent, I really am sorry. I do apologise. It's never my intention to just leave people hanging or whatever, or just not respond to people. And I truly wish that I could take the time to talk to everybody as much as possible. Whoever they are, if they're a brand new follower or if they're someone that's been around for ages, if they're sending me any message, I wish I could give them all the time they crave from me. I wish I could just sit and talk to everybody forever and ever, but sadly that's not the case. So I can't. So I apologise, but I'm very, very grateful for everybody, especially the people who subscribe to patreon.com/ewan. Those are the best people, the people I care the most about, obviously. The people giving me money. Bloody money. Bloody hooray for bloody money. So that's the hottest take of all. Well, I mean, as one incredibly lovely person said, my art is the hottest take they've ever seen. I'm the handsomest. I'm underrated. The hottest take. Ewan is the hottest take of all. Put that down in the annals of history. Banksy is ass. This one actually genuinely made me laugh out loud when I first read it. Because I read the first half initially when I first saw it. Banksy is ass. His work is la 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 la. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it's call it a hot take, but I think we can all agree that he's had his moment. But then I read the next half, which is his work is the live, laugh, love, home something of street art. I can't remember what the rest of it said, but his work is basically that. It's for people who don't know anything about graffiti, but like to put themselves out there as having some kind of like edgy knowledge of art or graffiti or street art or whatever. And so they put a Banksy print that wasn't bought from Banksy on their wall, and it's like the live, laugh, love of graffiti and street art, which I think is a brilliant take. And I say, Banksy had his moment. Him and a bunch of the others that rode that wave of, the street art boom in the early aughts or the early 2000s. I don't know, 2010s was it, or mid to early 2000s or something, where it just took off, and that's why people like Ein got really, really popular for some reason, even though their work was sort of at best. Oh, he paints big, colourful letters with, some style, but really not that much style. And then he does that just again and again and again. And you could say that's all graffiti writers do. But if you know Ein's work, then you know it's But he was part of that wave. He got in on the ground floor of that whole street art popularity boom and rode that wave for all its bloody worth. And Banksy arguably was the cause of that, the front runner with his work. And I still have his books, and I look through them now and again, and I think, I like this stuff. It's more aggravating as to what he kind of represents nowadays. And I think everyone around him kind of ruined it for him in a way. Because everyone wants to be the next Banksy, so everyone's trying to be Banksy. And you kind of want Banksy to stop in hopes that everyone else will stop. But then Banksy keeps going, and so everyone else keeps going. It's not directly related like that, but it feels that way. Also, I think it was very much a time when I was in my teenage years and early 20s, Banksy's work was like cool and hip and funny and edgy. But now I've grown up a bit. I'm like, like my ideas have changed, my humour has changed, what I feel is smart and edgy has changed. But Banksy doesn't seem to have evolved much necessarily. He's done a few different things here and there, but his work is pretty similar to what it used to be. And maybe that's where I feel Banksy has gotten lost on me personally, if that makes sense. His stuff's fine, it's well done, but and with people like carving his shit out of walls to sell, with councils painting over entire walls of graffiti but painting around a Banksy piece because it's a Banksy, even though it has no more right to be on that wall than any other piece of graffiti, but it's a Banksy. He has sort of ruined graffiti in that respect. He needs to just fuck off. He needs to understand what's going on, what he's done to the world, not for the world, but to the world, and he needs to just about shut up, take his stencils and fuck off. Banksy. More like Wanksy. Banksy. It's funny. That was really good. Eagle-eyed viewers may have noticed that the artwork we are working on today, the drawing we have been drawing, is at least in part somewhat loosely based upon body count. Ooh, oh. Kevin Eastman and Simon Bisley's Body Count, featuring Raphael, the Teenage Mutant Turtle. And guns. Lots of guns. It's from The Matrix. And I thought, since it's so heavily inspired by Thing, why not look at Thing? It's been a while since I picked this up. And I think last time I picked it up, this happened. Which is just, of course. I feel like I haven't even treated this book that badly, like I have some of my others. But it's a thing I own, and therefore it's got to be shit. This is Spanish as well. It was the only copy I could find at the time. And I figured I'm not going to be reading it because I don't fucking care about the story. Plus, from my understanding, one of the main premises of this book being made was that Eastman and Bisley together wanted to create basically the longest gunfight ever in comic books. Almost a comic book long gunfight. Oh, sorry, I'm having gas issues in my chest. I might throw up out of my ass. I might vomit diarrhea out of my anus. But I love this book so much. I got this way early on in my art career. And I love it so much. I think it's so good. I want to see a... No, I don't. Yeah, yeah, I'd love to see like I don't know, a proper art version of this, like a large format, like the Horned God one I've got, like that Judge Dredd one I've got, like the original artwork, black and white artwork. I'm gonna sneeze. Oh fuck me, I'm all kinds of fucked up today. Yeah, I want to see the black and white artwork without the digital colour in it, and I want to see the paintings, as many of them as possible, as many that were made. Because this was released as individual issues at one point, I think. Maybe I'm wrong about that. And if that is the case, then they had individual covers for each issue. I want to see all of those large-scale, full paintings. Maybe it's all in here and, it's whatever, but it would be cool to see, just to see more of it at a bigger size. Because that's a really fucking cool painting. It's got. I feel like he shouldn't have. Like there, he's got two fingers, but then here he's given him an extra finger on each hand. What's he doing? Simon Bisley doesn't even know how many fingers it's in his torso. Fuck is that? Fucking stupid. That's what it is. Fucking stupid. What a fucking idiot. He don't even fucking know how many. And Casey Jones, and that's. See, I was drawing Casey Jones. I could do away with the cover and just look at the book on its own. Lots of fight scenes in this. I really would love to see this in black and white. I think the digital colouring, like on these pages, isn't so bad, but it really feels like in some of the panels on some of the pages, the colouring is almost detrimental to the artwork. Certainly in at least one specific page that is always in my mind when I look at this book, because... Sorry, I gotta blow my nose. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. A fat wad of snot. tickling my insides, making me feel like I got to sneeze. Do you know what would be cool? Would be to get a black and white version of this as a hobby. If I was making enough money as an artist, a side project I would love to do is to get hold of not the original artwork, but black and white copies of these pages and paint them myself. Just repaint every page of this comic, because I feel like it's a great comic. It's a fantastic, fun comic. Look at that, it's fucking cool. Bodies being shot to pieces. Guns, guns, guns. But I really feel like the colouring lets it down in places. That's just me. I'm just trying to find shit to talk about. Ultimately, it's a minor complaint because, like, the whole comic's there, isn't it? But then I want to do that with my own comics as well. I want to go back through and remake them. I want to colour in the black and white ones. I was thinking actually recently, again, if I have enough money that I can afford to spend the time doing it, I would love to do a new, updated, fully painted version of my 24-hour Gun Viking comic. But, like, take my time making it, so I'm not rushing through every page like I did when I originally made it. Stick to the same basic layouts and stuff, but just update it, fully paint it, and have this brand new, brilliant, vibrant 24-page Gun Viking comic. I'd love to do that someday. It'll be on my list. I hope I will be able to do it someday. Yeah, love that. That's such a great page, panel, and series of panels. These are the ping, ping, ping here of the bullets pinging off of his size as he jumps down onto the guy. Yeah. So cool. I stole that for Death Fist. Well, I paid homage to it in one small part of Death Fist. That's so good. I love that. And that's cool too. Fuck yeah. Fucking gangster shit. This is obviously very early on in Bisley's comic career. And he says himself how before working for 2000 AD, he'd never made comics. Like, they gave him a job and they dropped him right into the world of making comic books. And he didn't have a comic book portfolio, which is almost insane to think. He just had good artwork. And they were like, sure, here's pages and pages of comic work for you. And, you know, that was ABC Robots and he did it. So this, as far as I'm aware, isn't long after that. And you can see he sort of refined parts of it. He's still quite loose, maybe even rusty in some parts. But it's fun. It's got his textures. Like, is this even veins? It looks like, I don't know, it looks like stone, it looks like moss. It's crazy textures in this skin and stuff. I love just the blunt angles of these size. There's no, like, curved hooks or anything to them. They're just fucking, just spikes. Yeah. Ooh, ninja. Jesus. What the hell are you? I think that's what this is. Pero que demonios eres tú? What kind of demon are you? A ninja. Yeah. Oh, what? Oh, God! A ninja! Pew, pew, pew. Something like that. My Spanish isn't great, but it's, I'm learning. Spending some time with some Mexican lovelies. Learning a few little bits and pieces here and there. Oh, God, I'm gonna vomit. Oh, Dios, voy a vomitar. I think it's because Casey Jones and this lady are being all lovey-dovey. Gracias, Senor Jones. Senor Jones. Llámame, llámame Casey. ¿A dónde vamos? Primero tengo que coger mis cosas. Oh, Dios, voy a vomitar. Thank you, Mr. Jones. My name's Casey. Where are you headed? Or where are we going? Vamos. ¿Dónde vamos? Yeah, where are we going? Oh, God, I'm going to vomit. My Spanish is actually better than I thought it was. I'm getting more words than I expected to. That's kind of cool. See, because once Gun Viking, the story is finished, which could potentially happen this year, we'll see, or early next year at the latest, then that's it. Then there's just room for me, if I work on anything Gun Viking, to just do whatever Gun Viking comics that aren't attached to the story. So one of them I'd really love to do would be to remake and fully paint the 24-hour comic. I'd need to come up with a name for it as well. I don't know. Car chases. I'm always terrified of having to draw like car chases and shit. Like cars are awkward enough to draw, let alone panel to panel, chasing each other, smashing into each other and shit. God damn. This is where... Well, it looks like the digital scans are just fucked, because these pages are blurry as hell. And it's just the artwork. The text... The bubbles... the bubbles are blurry, but then the text isn't. But that's obviously because of the Spanish translations I put on top of the blurry artworks as well. Look at that. That's supposed to be a neon sign, but the digital colouring on that is not it, is it really? That's just not it. They've got the white glow on the outside and the darker colour on the inside, but that should be reversed for a neon sign. Like a lightsaber. It should be like white in the middle and then coloured on the outside. I love that he's got Raphael's human disguise that they have in the cartoons, where they put on big coats and hats and walk around like they're just normal people. When it's like, no, you're clearly some kind of horrific mutant under there. What is going on? And then we have this. This is the page I was talking about, where I guess to get the rim lighting for the guns going off, they've swapped out the outline for like this yellow / white colour. And it just... Like, you can see what they're doing, or what they're going for, but it just... I mean, on camera it doesn't look too bad, but... it sucks. It's just early 90s digital colouring. It's sort of as good as it's going to be, isn't it? Fuck yeah! That's a child's machine gun noise. Cool and fun, cool and fun, cool and fun. Pretty much all the bits with Raphael are my favourite bits. That's a cool jump pose. Oh, it's a jump and a kick. I love the guns as well. The guns are just boxes in a lot of this. Just fucking... There's no real detail or finesse to them at all. Just fucking boxes that shoot bullets. Just all... Like, there's a couple of guns with some detail and some shape to them. But most of the guns in this thing are just... I think I've gone past what I was looking for. I mean, that's got some style to it. That's just like a shape. And these are just boxes. It's pretty funny. And maybe, I don't know, maybe that was Bisley not caring, not paying attention to it. Maybe it was a time thing. There's a lot of pages in this comic. There's a lot of drawing to get done. Maybe when it came to like guns. That gun. It's just a box, an obelisk with a hole in it. A monolith. Boom! Very cool, walking away from the explosion. There's some really cool character drawings here. It's probably quite a fun page to do when you've been like doing all this, like these car chases and drawing Raphael jumping around and fighting and stuff. All these shootout scenes and all of this. When you get a chance to just sit and draw some character faces, it's probably quite a nice chill couple of pages, not having to worry about stuff so much. Again, I love Raphael's disguise. It's so funny. a 90s Bisley outdoor scene. It's good. It tells the story. It shows what it needs to show. It's quite funny. Like the perspective is like a little bit wibbly wobbly, but it's good. I don't say that as a criticism. I say that as a thing I am noticing about the artwork, and I like it. I think it's good that it's not like necessarily rulered and gridded out. Everything's perfect. All these like scribbly houses. Because he used drawing pens back in the day. He didn't use like pen and ink or brush and ink or anything. So his lines are all scratchy and just quick, you know, as quick as possible. And that's one great thing you get from Bisley's artwork is the energy of the drawing itself. It doesn't feel like he's labouring over everything, drawing every detail, making it all meticulous. Like some artists, like Brian Bolland, every detail of his drawings are so like immaculate, so perfectly drawn and rendered, which is great, and it works really well for a Brian Bolland comic. But I love that Bisley's is just like, fucking yes, go, just draw the fucking shit. Bah! And as I say every time, I want to steal this pose for Gun Viking. I want to steal this pose, the guy in the background with the 2 submachine guns. That's a great pose. This, I mean, I've drawn Gun Viking in that exact pose like 100 times probably. I want to steal all of it. So good. So fucking cool. Raphael and Casey Jones. The details, you can see even from earlier on in the comic, he's, as happens in every comic ever, you sort of develop as you go. But you can see he's sort of developing how he's drawing and rendering certain things. Now there's a fucking gun. As he lobs the grenade with the sound effect of lob. Casey! Casey! Bastardo! Of course. The obligatory big-titted lady page. Knife fight. I fell into a burning ring of fire. I went down, down, down. Because I was on fire and I burned, burned, burned. 'Cause of the fire. Oh, so much fire! Ah! That's the sound I make when I'm on so much fire. Oh, Ewan, you're crazy. What are you on? I'm on fire! Ah! See, in this instance, the fire is all of these hot takes. See, it's linked. It's linked. Like my penis and your mother's whore mouth. See, because the takes are so hot, it's like they've created a ring of fire around me, and it burns, 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 does the ring of fire. Just like my anus when I shit, and just like my penis when I piss. It burns. Oh, how it burns. I thought I had a turquoise paint that I was planning to use for this, but evidently that's fucked off. I don't know what the shit has happened to it, so I'm having to DIY myself a turquoise paint. That should be turquoisey enough. Yeah, maybe a little dark. Let me add some more white to that shit. Yeah, that'd do, probably. That's alright. That's fine. It's fine, that is. That's fine. All artists are insane! Oh, only the good ones. Music is the better art form. Well, that is a hot take. That might be one of the hottest takes of the day. Jesus, music is the better art form. You know, in some respects, I think I have to agree. Maybe I don't necessarily agree with the use of the word better, but I have views, I have opinions and ideas about this. Right, well, I think it's possible that music could be considered a more generally loved and appreciated art form than, for instance, visual art. You know, like art you'd see in a gallery, illustration, comic book art, whatever. Obviously, it has its audience, does visual art. It has many audiences for many forms of the visual arts. Sorry, I'm a little bit clogged. However, you don't get people flocking to fill up stadiums for visual artists. Maybe someone like Banksy. But in general, like somebody who is maybe, you know, I'm obviously a very popular artist, but I'm not crazy popular like some artists. So if there was, for instance, a musician on sort of my level of fame and popularity, I apologise for speaking like this, but it's purely to use as an example. They may well be able to draw fans to one venue where they're playing, but I feel like it would be much harder for me to do that with my audience. Like, if a band releases an album or goes on tour or whatever, a band that's more famous than me, whatever, regardless, let's pretend it's not me, pretend it's anyone else. A famous band, a well-loved, liked band, can potentially draw crowds from all over the world to go to one place where they are playing their music, and people will pay money for a ticket and buy merchandise, maybe even pay to spend the night somewhere so they can go and see them. If I release a comic, if an artist releases a comic and says this comic is going to be available here in this one place at this one date, and it costs 50 quid to look at it, no one's travelling to look at that comic. They're going to say, can I see it online? Is there a PDF? Can I just order a copy of it so I don't have to travel miles and miles and stay overnight to see your comic book that you have made, Ewan or whoever it is we're talking about. So in that respect, I think music could, in a way, be considered the better art form. Because you can just get on stage and perform music. You can't really get on stage and perform art. There are people who've done kind of visual art performances, like painting a piece quickly. You paint a portrait really quickly upside down so people can't tell what it is, and then you flip it around and people go, oh, it's a portrait of the person, oh my god, whatever. But in general, that's one of my concerns kind of with the whole Illustrated World series thing. Because like if you're watching that, the first 20 to 30 minutes of any round of that contest, you're watching blank things, just blank pages with like pencils moving around them because you can hardly see what's going on. And even when ink lines start to go down, it's like you're seeing the beginning shapes of a piece that you have to sort of try to figure out what it is. It's only like 2/3 to halfway through that it might start taking shape. So trying to draw performatively is very different. Like I can do it in these videos because it's part of a larger thing, and I'm talking about stuff and I'm explaining the process. But if I just put on just the drawings without anything over the top of it, without any commentary or music or anything, it's unlikely they're going to get anywhere near the views or the audience that they would get as a podcast. Not that I get loads and loads of views anyway, but I'm just repeating the same shit. You get the idea. Music is... people like music. People adore music. They will travel for music. They want to watch people perform music. It's hardcore fans that are that dedicated to the visual arts. Whatever, if it's graffiti or comic book art or illustration, whatever it is. Only the hardcore fans. Whereas even, I guess lightweight fans will go and see performances, will go and watch musicians perform, even if they're not necessarily that into the people performing. They'll go and see them just for something to do. People go and see comedy just for something to do. No one's going to say like, oh shit, there's a guy in this theatre drawing pictures. Do you want to go and watch? Do you want to go and watch a guy draw pictures for 2 hours? Like, no. no one's going to go and watch someone draw pictures for 2 hours. It'll be madness. It'll be a world gone topsy-turvy. Believe me, I'd love for people to do that, because then maybe that's something I could look into trying to do. Try to get a local theatre venue to host me, and people can come and watch me draw pictures for 2.5 hours. Maybe I'll talk at the same time, maybe I won't. A live silent podcast. However, so all of that is to say, art is a much more universal language, because, for instance, well, like music, different people have different tastes in genres and whatever, and obviously the same is true of art. Different people like different kinds of art. But for instance, if I travel to a country, a foreign land that I've not been to, I don't know the language, they don't know my language, I can use art to communicate. If I need to know where the toilet is, I can draw a picture of a toilet and look confused, look like I'm looking around. And people will go, oh, he's looking for a toilet or a bus or a giant chicken wearing a funny hat. Like, art can be used for that, whereas music can't. I guess, probably. I don't think it can, anyway. So music could be considered a better art form in some ways, possibly, potentially. But visual art has potentially more practical usage outside of performing a thing. Also, music is very performative in general. You will get people playing music purely for themselves, as to express feelings and things. They'll play moody songs if they're feeling moody. They'll play happy songs if they're feeling happy, as a way of expressing the inner feelings that they have. I keep putting my hand in wet paint. Fuck, man. But more than that, well, not more than that, but I think a lot of times people who play music want to play for people. They want people to hear the music they're playing. Not all the time, obviously. I'm speaking very, very generally. But a lot of people who play music hope for an audience, I imagine. Whereas a lot of artists, a lot of people who might not even consider themselves artists will make art, will fill sketchbooks almost in a way of like journaling, of like, they're not necessarily looking for a huge audience. Some people are, obviously. They want gallery shows and they want to get published and they want this, they want that. But art, like visual art, drawing and painting or whatever, can be a much more personal thing than music. Because I feel like music has a lot of connotations of like musicians and performing and fame and stuff, whereas art can be seen as being a lot more introspective. I don't know. A very hot take, though. I will give you credit for that. That's a very, very hot take, to just claim that music is better than, drawing and painting. But you're wrong. Fuck you. Most art communities are toxic and unwelcoming. Now, this is an interesting one. Is it? No. It's kind of interesting because there's two things, kind of. One thing is, I've never felt a need or a want to really be part of a community. I've always found it sort of better for me as an artist to sort of work on my own shit and be my own person. And if I build an audience doing that, then great, I suppose. But I've never tried to be part of like a community or a gang or a crew. If that does happen, it just sort of happens, which goes on to my next part of, it's possible that if you are trying to be part of an art community, that's what you're going to find. Because it feels like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I know what I'm trying to say, I'm just not being successful at saying it. If you are trying to find a community in the art world, then that's probably where the problem lies. Because if you're trying to find a community, you're trying to fit in somewhere, that's your first mistake, because anywhere you're trying to fit into is probably not somewhere you should fit in, so you're likely not going to be comfortable there regardless. So even if that community isn't necessarily inherently toxic and unwelcoming, you might find it to be such because it doesn't suit you and your sensibilities and what you should be striving for. Whereas if you just do your thing and then your community finds you and sort of naturally happens around you as you're creating your art, then it's going to feel a lot more welcoming and a lot less toxic because they are your people coming to you as opposed to you trying to find your people and not finding them. But I have felt this, I've spoken about it before, how multiple times at various points in my life where I've tried to be in like Games Workshop, for instance, the Warhammer store, and I found people in there to be quite unwelcoming. And that's not necessarily art, obviously, but it can be, you know, something of a creative place. But there's a lot of what's the word I'm searching for? I don't know. When people think they're better than everyone else. There's a lot of that in communities in general, and the art community isn't necessarily any better than that. What is the word I'm looking for? Fuck. Well, that's today's forgotten word. The word when people think they are better. It's not hierarchy, but it's like... Fuck, it's on the tip of my tongue. God damn it. I'll have to see if I can Google it. Word for thinking you're better than people. That might work. Not arrogant. No, not arrogant. That's not the word I'm looking for. Pompous, self-important. Oh, this is interesting, isn't it? Superior, conceited. Superior might be the word I'm looking for when people think they feel superior to others because they have knowledge that you don't. So they see themselves as being superior to you. I don't feel like that's the word I'm looking for, but it'll have to do. Yeah, that's true of a lot of communities. It's true of, people like to gatekeep shit in music, in art, in comics, in Warhammer. People like their positions of authority, however silly they might seem. Also, to the person that wrote that hot take, that opinion, sorry if that's a thing you have to deal with. That sucks. If you are trying to find a community and you are finding them toxic and unwelcoming. Apparently the tattoo world can be very much like that. There's a lot of that kind of superiority complex amongst tattoo artists. I hear from friends who are in that world. There's a lot of ego in the graffiti world as well. That's why people paint graffiti, because they have a lot of ego. I'm sure it exists in comics and illustration and stuff as well. I try not to participate actively in communities, but rather just sort of let a community build around me if possible. So maybe I don't have much experience of those kinds of toxic environments. But I've no doubt they do exist. It's a shame, but sort of is what it is, isn't it? Oh well. I don't understand why people hate Rothko so much. Leave him alone. I mean, that is a hot take. If you're defending Rothko, for those who might not know, Rothko is the one who paints like big colourful squares, like a red canvas and then a big yellow square on it, and then like a yellow stripe underneath, big blue square. That's Rothko. That sell for hundreds of millions, almost certainly for money laundering purposes and such. I have to ask that person, really? Do you really, truly not understand the hate? Like, I can defend some shit that I like, that other people don't like, but chances are I'll understand why people don't like it. Like, if I like a movie that is like, I like slow moving films, so I could understand why a lot of people might not like a lot of the films I like, because they're slow and boring as shit. But I'm not going to sit here going, I don't understand why people don't like it. It did really well, you know, the critics liked it, it got awards. I don't understand the hate it gets. Because it's slow and boring and it's foreign. People have to read subtitles. They don't want to do that shit. And so I'm not a fan of Rothko. I understand why people like Rothko. I do. I understand why people like that art. But I also understand why people don't like that art. I'm not going to sit here and go, well, I don't get it. Why do people not? Like, come on. It's big colourful squares. You could argue people just don't understand it, you know. It's most of the hate comes from people who aren't necessarily in the art world, and they see that shit making so much money and go, what the fuck? My kid could have done that. Which is obviously shit we've spoken about already, but you must understand why people don't like him. I'm not about to defend Rothko, because I don't fucking care. I think it's silly. But to say you don't understand the hate, I mean, come on. Come on. I think this is the last one I've got queued up. Please no more white boy Basquiat. Man's literally spinning in, and then his grave would be the end of that. Yeah, I agree. Again, not really a hot take, is it? It's just, that's a thing. There are lots of young white fellas trying to be the next Basquiat. I always thought it was pronounced Basquiat, and I prefer that pronunciation, but it's not. It's pronounced Basquiat. That's how he pronounced it. So, I mean, I feel silly if I try to pronounce it Basquiat. Yeah, there's been quite a lot on Instagram recently, even, of white fellas doing the canvas turn thing, where they have the canvas facing backwards. They turn it around, and the painting on the other side is almost a straight copy of like Basquiat pieces, and it's just like, I mean, that would be bad enough whoever copies it, because you're copying another artist to, yeah, and trying to pass the shit off as your own work, which is just dumb anyway. But Basquiat's work came from his life and his lived experiences as a person of colour, a black man. I don't know what the correct term would be, but so to then appropriate that as a white person and try to like pass it off as your artwork is just very, very silly on very many levels. You should just not should not do that. Really, realistically, really. Let's not, let's not. And say that we didn't. I had more to say on that, but I forget. I'm forgetting a lot. It's tired. We're getting towards the end of this whole thing. I'm tired. You're tired. If you've made it this far through, I mean, I'm always astounded when people are like, "Oh, I finished this episode of the podcast." Why? Why do you have nothing else going on in your life that you're able to spend hours watching my shit? But I guess you can have it on in the background or whatever. Can't you? It's not. I don't assume people are glued to the screen with this shit. Also, Basquiat became very famous very quickly. Very famous, very rich in a very short space of time doing what he did. And the artwork he created can be seen as being very easy to create. Very loose, sketchy. Some of the canvases and things are almost plain white with a couple of bits of colour and some black on them. And so it's easy for young, impressionable kids to see that and think, oh, I could do that. Basquiat got really famous doing that, so maybe if I do it, maybe I'll become... That's not necessarily the thinking behind it, but, you know, it's hard to look at it and not feel like that's part of it, at least. And I've felt the same way. I have, you know, watched a documentary about him, about his work, his process, and thought like, wow, you know, if he got rich and famous doing that, then imagine what I could do. And I have thought to myself, oh, what if I was like the next Basquiat, but, you know, white. Whatever the fuck that would be. Boring. I've had those thoughts. I'm almost embarrassed to say, but not too embarrassed to say. We all, you know, it's not even about fame and money necessarily, but it is about that, at the very least, the validation of like having people outside of your circle tell you you're good at what you do, that they like it enough to embrace it. And, you know, the money would help, obviously. I mean, that's the end, really. I could keep babbling. I actually thought like there'd be many moments where I end up cutting myself off in the edit suite, where I'm just going on and on and on about stuff, and then it just cuts to the next bit. But I've actually done surprisingly well with not babbling too much. I babbled a bit. I babbled an appropriate amount, I feel. And thank you to everybody. Thank you to everyone watching. Thank you to everyone for submitting your hot takes and your dumb opinions and your lukewarm takes, really. Your barely room temperature takes on art and the art world and such. And thank you to everyone who's been watching and is still watching 300 episodes in. I don't know. I'd have to ask. I wonder if there's anyone who's been watching from the beginning who's still watching today. I kind of doubt it, but I guess you never know. It's got to be one or two people. Either way, I'm very, very appreciative of you, specifically, everyone. And me. I'm appreciative of me. Aren't I good? Go me for still doing this shit. Fat, boring idiot. And I was told to stop doodling in class. It would never get me anywhere. And now look at me.